One thing I love about Atlanta is that it's always had a story of renewal. Georgia began as a place for prisoners and people in debt to wipe the slate clean and start over. And then when Atlanta was born, it was born from nothing. It was literally railroad tracks and forests, and people moved here to build a new city from the ground up. And then when Atlanta was burned to the ground, they rebuilt it out of the ashes. And then Atlanta helped lead the way for the civil rights movement. Atlanta has always had a story of renewal. And spiritual renewal in the city is no different. There's such a rich legacy of incredible churches and pastors bringing the gospel to hundreds of thousands of people across the generations. And yet, in a city that has such amazing churches, there's a growing gap in today's Atlanta. Studies are showing that between the ages of 18 to 29, almost 60% of people will walk away from the church. 60%, that's 3 out of every 5 people walking away. And that doesn't include people who never set foot in church in the first place. So who are these people? What is this millennial generation, and why are they leaving? A one-size-fits-all strategy doesn't work for them because they're not one shape or one size. And although they're the internet generation, connected to millions of people around the world, what they really want, what they're really looking for, are deep, authentic relationships, real relationships with people that can love them, care for them, and listen to them when they need it most. So how do we reach these people with the gospel? Well, it's a huge challenge, and it's going to require a huge solution. But what if that's just it? What if the next big thing is really small? And what if the next new thing is really, really old? You see, if we go way back to when the church first started, when it was really small, we find a culture that's not very different than what the millennials are facing today. It was a culture that was undergoing huge change, where pluralism was the rule of the day. Jesus was only one of hundreds of different options for faith and spirituality. And in the midst of that culture, the apostles began to plant small neighborhood congregations, people who gathered together with their neighbors, people that they did life with, that they saw on the streets and in the marketplace. And as these groups of people gathered to worship, they took care of each other as a family, and they reached out to their local community in love. Over time, these communities spread, and as they did, they eventually changed the entire world. We believe that a church that looks like that has the power to change our world in the here and now. And that's why we believe God is calling us to plant a church in the city of Atlanta that's not really new, but actually is really, really old. It's a church we're calling the Parish, and our dream is to see dozens of neighborhood congregations spring up all over this city, churches that are as unique and diverse as the neighborhoods that they represent, places where people can gather with those around them that they see in grocery stores, in coffee shops, at school meetings, on baseball fields. Church with your neighbors and for your neighborhood. And as these small congregations begin to see God's renewal happen in their local community, they're also tied together as a family, seeing God's story of renewal happen across the entire city. And what's more, as part of the Anglican family, these churches tap into a tradition that is one of the deepest and richest that the church has ever seen, and a rich legacy of history, culture, theology, worship, and beauty. It's an anchor that can provide us the stability we need to navigate the changing waters of the next generation. This is a huge vision. It's a vision of God changing the entire city, one zip code at a time. We want to see Atlanta become a place of renewal again for the next generation. That's the vision of the Parish, joining in the story of God and renewing the here and now.